The dust of the 17th century battlefield never truly settles. We are taught that the Ottoman war machine was a monolith of masculine ambition, a hierarchy defined by the Sultan's reach and the Janissary's blade. But tucked into the margins of fragmented imperial ledgers and whispered through the oral traditions of the Anatolian frontier, a phantom emerges. To seek her is to engage in a high-stakes duel with silence. We find ourselves standing before an impenetrable wall of patriarchal record-keeping. Consequently, the archives are not merely incomplete, they are curated. They are a deliberate architecture of erasure. Historical truth is rarely a straight line. It is a tapestry woven with threads of myth, bias, and the occasional, accidental slip of a scribe's quill. While current historical research provides a framework for understanding the exceptional women of the era, those who wielded power behind the curtain of the harem or within the complexities of the wax system, the leap from influence to field command remains a chasm. We are not merely chasing a ghost. We are attempting to reconstruct a reality that the victors of history deemed impossible. But as we peel back these layers, we must walk a narrow path between skepticism and discovery. The wind howls across the plains of the Balkans, carrying the echoes of a war that changed the map of the world. The archives may have silenced her, but the soil of history remembers. Let us step into the breach. The air in 17th century Istanbul tasted of salt, ambition, and the faint, lingering smoke of gunpowder. To the west, the Habsburgs sharpened their steel. To the east, the Safavids guarded the silk routes with iron resolve. The Ottoman Empire stood as the fulcrum of this global tension, a sprawling titan stretching from the gates of Vienna to the scorching sands of the Hejaz. Yet, beneath the vaulted ceilings of the Topkapi Palace, a different kind of sovereignty flourished. The harem was not the passive gilded prison painted by Orientalist fantasies. It was the empire's beating heart, a labyrinthine nerve center of intelligence and agency. They were the architects of alliances, the whispers that dictated the movement of armies, and the silent arbiters of imperial policy. They operated in the shadows, not because they lacked the capacity for command, but because the rigid architecture of Ottoman society demanded it. Social mores dictated that a female's battlefield was the domestic sphere, her influence strictly confined to the soft power of diplomacy and dynastic preservation. To lead an army, to hold a blade, or to dictate strategy from the saddle was to invite exile or erasure. But history is a tapestry woven with hidden threads. Behind the heavy velvet curtains and the intricate latticework of the mashrabiyah, there were those who defied the binary of the hearth and the home. Our subject did not merely influence the war effort. She mastered it. She learned to speak the language of the Janissaries and the dialect of the Pashas, carving out a dominion where no woman was permitted to tread. The breach is open. Behold the woman they spent 4 centuries trying to delete. Dust chokes the lungs of the Janissaries, but the panic in their eyes isn't born of the encroaching enemy. It is born of the figure standing upon the parapet. She does not retreat. This is the siege of Otranto, or perhaps a ghost of it, a moment where history's ink was spilled to hide a singular truth. By all tactical logic, the defense should have folded. Then came the shift. She took the mantle not through title, but through the sheer, terrifying gravity of her presence. She refuses the direct charge, knowing the narrow bottleneck of the breach is a death trap. It is a feint, a masterclass in spatial manipulation. As the enemy pushes deeper, blinded by the scent of a phantom victory, she reveals the final stroke. The trap snaps shut. The mask slips. A shockwave of silence ripples through the blood-slicked stone of the courtyard. The tactical genius they had followed into the maw of hell was not the man they expected, but the woman they had been taught to ignore. She didn't just hold the line. She re-engineered the battlefield. They were dismantled by a mind that saw the geometry of war where others saw only chaos. The smoke does not merely clear, it settles like a shroud over the shattered ramparts. In the immediate aftermath, the tactical genius who broke the Venetian line, a woman whose name was never etched into the state archives, faced a battlefield stripped of glory and a capital hungry for a scapegoat. She understood that in the Ottoman court, a triumph led by a woman was a political heresy, a tremor that could topple the throne itself. She orchestrated the transition with surgical precision. With the city's defense solidified and the Venetian fleet routed, she moved to stabilize the administrative chaos. She drafted the reports, falsified the casualty logs, and smoothed the jagged edges of the conflict until the narrative fit the patriarchal mold of the era. She did not fight for the recognition of history, she fought for the survival of the empire, and perhaps for the survival of her own life. She became the ghost in the machine, the silent architect of an era of peace that historians would later attribute to the whims of male monarchs. Look closely at the modern map of the region, or walk the quiet, sun-drenched corridors of the old fortresses that still stand today. History is not merely what is written, it is what is chosen to be remembered. We have spent centuries reading the ledger of the winners, ignoring the ink stains left by the hands that actually held the quill. She was erased not because she failed, but because she succeeded too thoroughly to be understood by the men who held the records. It waits in the gaps of the archives, pulsing beneath the surface of the official story. If you are haunted by the voices history chose to silence, join us. The next story is already waiting to be unearthed.